in the early 90s, there was an influx of various players that had came into the NBA. Uh, you know, a lot of a lot of the sports media, a lot of the fans, and the whole entire basketball world was was captivated by Michael Jordan, but at the same token, they were also looking for somebody that was going to both um, eventually take over as that next guy to look at, or as that superstar, and as that guy who was going to pretty much take over the league. Okay, and when you talk about the early '90s, right off the top of your head, you mention guys who I've mentioned before, like a Penny Hardaway, like a Grant Hill, like a Jason Kidd, uh, and many other guys too. That there was an influx of those players, especially when you talk, Chris Webber, you know, a lot of guys, and also you had the emergence of several guys in there too that were doing their thing, such as Sean Kemp before the injuries, and um, just a lot of players that had came in from that college scene that was very competitive. Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, uh, guys like that. But I think that one person that gets looked over oftentimes is Jamal Mashburn. Let me tell you guys something, okay? Now, a lot of you judge a guy based on looking at his statistics. You might look at, his numbers, and then you'll be like, okay, well, that's the deciding or determining factor of this particular player. But you wouldn't have really known who this player was, if you really did not sit down and really watch the game, or if you lived through that time. And that's why it's good to have many guys like myself and in the LDBC community to really tell you what this guy was or what he used to be had it not been for the injuries. When you talk about Jamal Mashburn, aka Monster Mash, you're talking about a guy that he had a both combination of rugged and smooth type of play mixed in together, sort of like Carmelo Anthony. And the reason why I compare him a lot to Carmelo Anthony is because they both played that small forward position, and he was by far a prolific scorer. Um, Originally from New York, by the way of the Bronx, stood at 6'8", 247 pounds. He was the original. He was the first round pick, and fourth overall. And of course, he went to the Dallas Mavericks. Now, earlier I was talking about the Dallas Mavericks team, right? And that consisted of Jamal Mashburn, uh, Jimmy Jackson, and Jason Kidd. Jamal Mashburn before the injuries, before injuries started to rob him of his athleticism and of his career and his capabilities of what he could fully do on the court. Jamal Mashburn was a problem. When he came out of Kentucky, this guy was one of the supremely gifted scorers, as I said before. Uh, put this into account too. I want y'all to let this sink in. He averaged 19.1 points per game for his career. And some people might be like, well, what's the big deal and everything. But if you go back and you go look before his, problems with his injuries and everything, he was always good. He was always a 20 point scorer, and it was before a short period of time. Now he got hurt um, in the 95-96 season. Okay, that's when he had only played 18 games, and then also he got hurt again in the 96-97 season, and then he ended up getting hurt again. He got hurt. Um, he was still hurt quite a bit too in the same season in which he went to Miami. Before he had got hurt though, he was starting to emerge. Now when he came in, he originally was about at 20 points. He was at 19.2 points per game, and then immediately took a jump in that next season with Dallas in the 94-95 season. Uh, he was at 24 points per game. And listen, for you guys that love shooting and stuff like that, he could shoot too. He could step out and shoot too. He shot 32.8 point uh, well, percentage wise, 32.8 uh, percent from 3 point. Now, back then they weren't shooting, especially like at the small forward position. Guys weren't lighting it up, like that, unless you were like a Dale Ellis or somebody that was consistently was a threat from the three pointer, or a Datlas Shrimp, or or somebody like that that was a specialist, but he could mix it up too, right? But he was at 24 points per game his very next season. Then before he had got hurt, he was averaging 23.4 points per game. So he was emerging too as one of the supremely gifted scores. But then his scoring had went down due to the injuries, especially when he was with Miami. You see, there was a big drop. Uh, he was putting up, in comparison to his second year and third year before he had got hurt. He went down to 10.6, 13.4, 15.5, and 14.8. However, he did try to he did try to combat that toward the end of his career, right? Uh, you know, he went to Charlotte, and he went back up to reemerging and establishing himself as one of the prolific scorers, somewhat, even though his athleticism wasn't you know quite there. He still showed that he could still be decent in terms of scoring because he was shooting. Actually, when he had went to Charlotte, he was shooting over 35.6 and 36, and almost close to 40% from 3 pointers. He started to kind of stretch his game out. And even one year when he was with the New Orleans Hornets, he actually played all 82 games, and he averaged in those years when he was with Charlotte, and when they were making a change to the franchise, he he averaged he was always a 20-point scorer. Like I said, he scored 20.1, then 21.5, then 21.6, and then as it's he was done in 2003 and 2004, and I don't really like to count that season, but he did put up 20.8 points per game. Uh, we have to look at the fact that some of these guys that played the game and some of these guys that were in the 90s, who you look at now, you're like, oh, that guy was trash or something like that, disrespecting them and stuff. You got to look at what was transpiring then, and then also you got to look at, okay, this person went through an injury or that person went through an injury. So everybody's body is not the same. We have to understand that, and we have to use logic with that. But I think some people forget about a guy like a Monster Mash who really impacted the game with the scoring, especially with the small forward position. Was he a high flyer and all of that? No, he wasn't no high flyer, but he could get in there in the paint and mix it up and everything. He was somewhat athletic, but at the same token, he was still gifted in terms of his scoring. He wasn't the guy that was like jumping straight out the gym or anything like that, but he could still have an impact with the scoring. And I often feel like if he had not got hurt in his short-lived career, he probably, skies would have been the limit for a guy like Jamal Mashburn, you know. And I often look at that. Of course, we look at the guys like the Grant Hill who is in the Hall of Fame, and of course, we look at a guy like Larry Johnson, who's not in the Hall of Fame, or a guy like Penny Hardaway, who's not in the Hall of Fame. Some people will actually argue that um, Penny Hardaway should be in the Hall of Fame. Some people actually argue that, So yeah, Monster Mash, man, he was something. He was a enjoyable player to watch. Uh, he definitely he definitely had capability of taking the game over, and more importantly, man, this guy had raw ability. There's some guys that you look at and you could tell that it was it was tutored or it was taught, or they have been working on it, or it's rehearsed or something like that. But this guy had candid raw ability with his scoring, and he just had a knack for scoring the ball like a Carmelo Anthony. And if I could compare, like I said, if I could compare anybody, to Jamal Mashburn, it would be like a guy like, a Carmelo Anthony. And, of course, people have Carmelo Anthony as one of the best scorers to ever grace the NBA court. Um, but he went through a lot. He went through a lot. I'm talking about Jamal Mashburn, and he's one of the guys that I look at, besides the Penny Hardaway, besides the Grant Hills, LJ's, um, even Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp, even though it wasn't the injuries per se, had to do with the off the court stuff. I look at those guys, man, and I'm like, man, Hall of Fame, superstar capability. Uh, if they had just continued on. My last point here, man. I look at a I look at like a guy like Michael Beasley. who I talked about yesterday. And with Michael Beasley, it's a little bit different. Yeah, he got hurt here and there, but for the most part, it's just been, trials and tribulations that he's been experiencing off the floor. And Michael Beasley is actually supposed to be making a comeback, right? He's going to be making a comeback, and I look at a guy like that who's 33, and some people would be like, well, you're 33 years old. Why are you coming back? You're too old, or something like that. However, it's you have to realize, okay, he wants to capitalize and finish where he started, and that's the same mentality that Grant Hill had too. He wanted to finish what he started. I'm pretty sure people were questioning Grant Hill. Okay, well, why are you coming back? You're hurt all the time. He probably heard everything in the book. As an athlete or entertainer or somebody that's famous or somebody that's is really good at a skill or a craft, you're often going to hear the naysayers. You're often going to hear people that are going to try to detour you from doing what you want to do, and continue on and pressing on and stuff. But the beauty of that is that they're not in your body. It's your brain, it's your lung, it's your heart, it's your blood, it's your eyes, it's your legs, it's your arms, it's your activity in your own limbs. So you have every right to feel like, okay, look, I could come back and I could play that game. Sean Kemp was trying to make a comeback a few years ago, and just the just the disrespect on Sean Kemp and stuff like that, it was just amazing, and you can't sit there and judge a guy just because he wants to come back, because you don't know how that guy is actually feeling. I actually, at one point in time in my life, I looked at that and I was like, well, why would that guy want to come back? Or why would a guy want to do this? Or why would a guy want to do that? But, they see a guy like LeBron James, flying up and down the court at 37 years old and stuff. And some of these guys are like, well, shoot, I'm 33. I got a good 4 years. Or some guys, like Darren Collison, I'm 31. I can still do that. Or even right now, Lance Stevenson, he's getting older or whatever, but he was signed to his fourth 10-day contract. So we got to stop not only disrespecting the players from the past, saying, okay, if you put them in this era, they couldn't do this or they couldn't do that or something like that. You don't know. You honestly don't know, and you don't know what the players from today would be able to do back then. Now we can speculate, and we can make our prophecy or prediction, but that's really all it is. And some people, the beauty of that is not even knowing. Penny Hardaway did say this though. He did say that if he was to play in today's NBA, he said by far I would have scored more. He said all of his statistics would have went up, and I agree with that because Penny Hardaway, you want to talk about a stat filler? This guy was a stat filler. Now, maybe not so much as a Jason Kidd, but Penny Hardaway can get you 10 assists. Penny Hardaway can get you 10 rebounds, and Penny Hardaway can also get you double digit in scoring. So that's my take on it, man. Monster Mash, man. It was a joy to watch him coming up. He got a son, Jamal Mashburn Jr., who's playing too as well. But Monster Mash, if you weren't able to check him out, man, definitely go check him out, man. He definitely was a beauty to watch. And don't watch him. watch him more in his college days, and watch him more when at that beginning when he was with Dallas, I would say, because that's when you were going to see him, especially in that 94 95 season. Like I said, salute to you, true Viking. But y'all let me know what you think, man. Leave your comments, like this video, share, subscribe, hit them notifications. Polo Sports Talking Entertainment. I'll get at you later.